Here's what no one will tell you about the world's first photograph. You look at it and see nothing, just some smudges, shadows, scratches. But what if I told you that this ghostly image holds the code to immortality? That this blurry rectangle forever changed how we perceive reality and even how we think? I'm about to reveal the most closely guarded secret of this tin plate. It depicts something the human eye could never truly see. This is view from the window at Gras, created in 1826. To capture this single frame, the inventor had to wait 8 hours for the sun to slowly etch the image. Today, we achieve this in 1,000th of a second. The central question of this video is, how did this blurry, almost accidental image become one of history's greatest revolutions? And what exactly must we discern within it to grasp its genius? Today, it resides at the Harry Ransom Center in Texas, preserved in a special oxygen-free sarcophagus, like a treasure from an alien civilization. 8 hours of exposure then versus 1/1,000,000th of a second on a modern camera. This isn't just a difference in speed, it's a difference in eras. In the next few minutes, we won't just unravel this mystery. We'll understand the mindset of the man who hunted light for a decade. We'll discover how his time machine of tin and asphalt functioned. And most importantly, we'll decipher what is truly depicted here, and you'll realize why this technology underpins everything you see on this screen. Niépce named his method heliography, sunwriting, or writing with the sun. He wasn't just inventing a technology, he was naming a new art form. Enough with the mysteries. To understand photography, you must understand the man behind it. His name was Joseph Nicéphore Niépce. He was neither an artist nor a magician. He was an obsessed inventor, attempting to solve a simple yet seemingly impossible problem. Think about how long you've worked on a thesis, a home renovation, or a business plan. A month, a year. Niépce dedicated over a decade to his idea. 10 years of failures, ridicule, and experiments in a dark room. Now imagine you have no Google, no textbooks, just you, your objective, and sunlight. Picture trying to invent the internet with only a typewriter and a telegraph at your disposal. This was the world Niépce lived in. He was solving a problem for which a descriptive language didn't even exist yet. Before Niépce, reality was elusive. It could only be interpreted by an artist's brush, a poet's words. But it couldn't be captured, a moment locked in a box. The camera obscura, the precursor to the modern camera, had existed for centuries, yet it merely projected a fleeting specter of the world. As soon as the light source vanished, so did the image. Geniuses like Leonardo da Vinci and Jan Vermeer utilized the camera obscura to achieve incredible realism. But even they could only trace the projection of light. They were its scribes, while Niépce aspired to become its publisher. To achieve this, he chose not paper, but metal, a tin plate polished to a mirror sheen, and instead of paint, something entirely unexpected, Syrian asphalt, or more precisely, Judean bitumen. He observed its peculiar property. Under the influence of sunlight, the bitumen hardened, solidified, and became insoluble. This was the key, the precise moment when an alchemical happenstance transforms into a scientific method. Not paint that draws, but a substance that remembers light. This wasn't blind luck. Bitumen was already used in engraving as an acid-resistant varnish. Niépce's genius lay in recognizing a photosensitive material for an entirely new art form within a protective material used for engravings. He took a tool from one world and applied it to another. The process itself resembled a ritual. He coated the plate with a thin layer of liquid bitumen. Then, light, passing through a lens, fell upon this surface. But it didn't destroy the substance, as one might assume. On the contrary, it fixed it. Where there was abundant light, on roofs, in the sky, the bitumen hardened, transforming into a durable crust. And where shadows reigned, it remained soft and pliable. After long hours in the sun, all that remained was to wash the plate with a mixture of lavender oil and white spirit. The liquid shadows rinsed away, while the hardened lights persisted. This was no longer a drawing. It was a chemical imprint of reality. His camera was a simple wooden box with a lens. No settings, no shutter, no flash. Just a dark box he placed on his workshop windowsill. Inside, he positioned his precious plate. It was a light trap, a trap that didn't snap shut, but rather slowly absorbed its prey, photon by photon. This was a true DIY project. The lens was likely borrowed from his microscope or telescope. He assembled a machine of the future from parts of the past. This wasn't a factory-made device. It was an artifact of pure ingenuity. Now, let's become that tin plate for a second. We are placed in complete, absolute darkness. Then, the lens opens, and photons of light begin to strike us. Not for a fraction of a second, but for an hour, 2, 5, 8. We don't see, we simply feel our surface slowly, molecule by molecule, irreversibly change under this endless stream of energy. We are the first artificial witness in history, a witness who doesn't blink, doesn't get distracted, and doesn't forget. A witness whose memory is a chemical reaction burned onto metal. Everything was ready for the greatest experiment. The technology worked, the location was chosen, the view from his estate window. But Niépce didn't yet know that to achieve his result, he would have to make a pact with time, capturing something that physically could not exist at a single moment. Early in the morning of 1826, Niépce began his pivotal experiment. He aimed the lens at the view from his workshop window at the family estate, Gras. It was a scene he observed every day, the roofs of outbuildings, a dovecote, a tree in the background. He decided to immortalize what was most familiar to him. He opened the lens, and he waited. Hours passed, the sun climbed higher. And here lies the first secret of this photograph. The exposure lasted no less than 8 hours. During this time, the sun traversed its entire path across the sky from east to west. This means that shadows from both the east and west sides of the buildings were imprinted on the plate simultaneously. Consider this. In the photograph, the sun illuminates the left wall of the building as it would in the morning and the right wall as it would in the evening. This is not a snapshot of a moment. It is a collage of 8 hours of time, compressed into a single image, a chronal paradox solidified in asphalt. When Niépce decided enough time had passed, he carried the plate into his darkroom. To wash away the unhardened bitumen, he used a mixture of lavender oil and white spirit. This recipe sounds like an alchemist's incantation, and in essence, it was alchemy. For years, he had painstakingly selected components that could separate the remembered part of the bitumen from the forgotten part. Slowly, with bated breath, he poured this mixture over the plate, and from the dark sludge something began to emerge. It wasn't a sharp image, it was a ghost. Barely discernible outlines of buildings, skiing shadows, but it was there. An image created not by human hand, but by light itself, a moment that would no longer vanish. It was caught. Let's evaluate this breakthrough. Technical quality, 1 out of 10. Clarity, 1 out of 10. Novelty, 10 out of 10. Impact on the future, 11 out of 10. This was a case where execution didn't matter. What was crucial was the sheer fact. For the first time, humanity had compelled reality to leave its own imprint. The Mona Lisa is a masterpiece of human interpretation of reality. View from the window at Gras is a masterpiece of reality's automation. For the first time in history, the intermediary between the world and its image was not a human, but a physical law. So let's finally break down what we're seeing. To the left is a dovecote. In the center, the sloping roof of a barn. To the right, another wing of the house with a window. And in the background, a tree and the sky. When you know where to look, chaos transforms into a landscape. The paradox is that for decades, no one could definitively say what was depicted there. It wasn't until 1952 that historians were finally able to decipher this ghostly landscape. It took the technologies of the future to understand a message from the past. But why is this image, which today wouldn't even make a decent profile picture, more important than all the masterpieces of painting? Because it didn't just change art. It changed our relationship with death. Before 1826, every moment was born and immediately died. It couldn't be preserved. A painting is merely a human's memory of a moment, their interpretation. Niépce's photograph became the first murder of time in history. It prevented the moment from dying, embalming it in asphalt. Humanity, for the first time, gained power over what previously simply vanished. The philosopher Roland Barthes called this the "that has been." Every photograph carries this undeniable evidence, and Niépce's image is the very first that has been. It is the atom of all documentary proof, the inaugural, undeniable imprint of the past. A painting is always subjective. It conveys the artist's feelings, mood, and style. Photography, it seemed then, couldn't lie. It showed what was. This was a shift from interpretation to fixation. A witness emerged who couldn't be bribed or deceived, light itself. One could say Niépce made the sun an artist. The American philosopher Charles Peirce would have called this an index, a direct physical imprint, like a footprint in the sand or a fingerprint on glass. This photograph isn't an image of the world, it's its scar of light. From this tin plate began an unstoppable domino effect. The desire to make images better, faster, and more accessible gave birth to daguerreotypes, film, and cinema. Without Niépce, there would be no Hollywood, no television news, no photos on your phone. All of it, every bit, is a direct descendant of that 8-hour ghost. This tin plate is the common ancestor for every JPEG file, every frame in a blockbuster, every image of a black hole captured by a telescope. In the genealogical tree of images, it is the very first point, the point of singularity. Just open the gallery on your phone. Thousands of captured moments, thousands of small acts of immortality. Have you ever considered that you hold in your hands the direct legacy of a man who spent 10 years in a darkroom, compelling asphalt to remember sunlight? Every one of your selfies is an echo of his victory over time. According to the latest data, humanity takes over 1.5 trillion photos a year. That's nearly 5 billion a day. And each of those 5 billion images carries, in its digital DNA, the chemical trace of that very first tin plate. The greatest irony is that Niépce himself never lived to see the triumph of his technology. He died in poverty in 1833. His more entrepreneurial partner, Louis Daguerre, refined the process, made it faster, gave it his own name, daguerreotypy, and entered history as the father of photography. The glory went not to the one who discovered the continent, but to the one who first mapped it and sold tickets for the tour. It's a classic story akin to Tesla versus Edison. Niépce was the pioneering genius, while Daguerre was the brilliant marketer and showman who packaged and sold the idea to the world. History often remembers the popularizer, not the inventor. We live in a world of endless images, but the story of this single, imperfect frame is not just a history of technology. Niépce's lesson is a protocol for anyone who seeks to create something utterly new. The first and most important lesson: the first version will always be ugly. Niépce wasn't trying to create a masterpiece. He was trying to prove that it was even possible. In Silicon Valley, this is called an MVP, a minimum viable product. His blurry image is the greatest MVP in history. The sole purpose of that image was to answer yes to the question, can it be done? Don't be afraid of imperfect results. The main thing is to get a signal that you're on the right track. The second lesson: innovation is born at the intersection of ideas. Niépce blended chemistry, optics, and lithography to create something that belonged to none of those fields. This is known as the Medici effect. He combined what no one else had before him: a tin plate, Judean bitumen, and lavender oil. Look around you. What seemingly incompatible things might solve your problem? The third lesson: great things take time. 10 years of preparation, 8 hours of exposure. In a world obsessed with speed, Niépce gambled on patience. He operated on a geological, not a human, timescale. His plate didn't glimpse the world in fractions of a second, as we do. It observed it, much like a mountain watches the sun's movement. It allowed light to slowly etch the image, like a river carving a canyon. He understood, some processes cannot be rushed. You just have to let the sun do its work. And now, knowing all this, a decade of failures, the ingenious simplicity of the technology, and its incredible impact on the future, I'll ask you the ultimate question. What was this first image? A stroke of genius or a fortunate accident? Write just one word in the comments, genius or accident. Let's see which gets more votes.